Hello everyone and welcome. I have kept this tutorial series mod free, and I did that for a couple of reasons. Number one is I think the stock game stands up very well just on its own. And number two, I know for a lot of people, console players in particular, modding isn't really an option. So by keeping the tutorial series mod free, I am making it for as broad an audience as I can. That all said, Kerbal Space Program has an exceedingly active modding community, and there are tons of mods out there for you to try out and use. The mods run the gamut from quality of life mods that tweak the interface more to your liking, to mods that completely change the difficulty, scale, and look of the game. I'm going to be installing mods in two different ways. I'm going to start off by installing one manually. Now, I'm on a PC using the Windows 10 operating system, so if you're on a different platform, it will be a little bit different for you. But then after that, I'm going to use another mod called CKAN, which is a mod to help you manage further mods, and it greatly simplifies the entire process. Now, before we get started, something I would strongly recommend is that you back up your copy of Kerbal Space Program. Installing mods most of the time goes absolutely fine, but every once in a while it goes south, and you want to be able to make sure that you can revert back to what you had before, especially if you have an active save going. Now, I happen to have downloaded KSP through Steam, and statistically probably a lot of you have as well, and Steam automatically keeps the game up to date, which is great, except when it breaks your mods, which can happen because there's always a lag with modders having to update their mods after the game itself has updated. And if you have a modded game and Steam decides to update it, guess what? Your game might end up becoming broken. So backup is what I would say definitely to do. Now, if you have your game installed through Steam, what that means is you will find your game under the Steam folder, wherever it is that you have it installed, folder called Steam Apps, and then Common, and then under that you'll have all the various games that you have installed. And I need to find Kerbal Space Program, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to drag it to a folder that I already have here for KSP, and we're going to copy it here, not move it. I want to keep the original one pristine, while this copied one is the one that I'm going to modify. Alright, so let's go into my KSP folder here. We'll open that up, and you can see that I actually have a few versions of KSP installed. And I can take this one, which is the one I just copied over here, and we're going to rename this. And this is going to be like for the video, because I will be deleting this as soon as this one is done. Alright, so now we got this nice, fresh version of Kerbal Space Program to play around with without affecting any of the other versions. Alright, let's go about modding. So let's install our first mod, and I think for our first mod I'm going to use one that I talked about in my last math video, Kerbal Engineer Redux. So how are you going to find it? Well, the first thing you're going to do, you can go in and you can start Googling. I will provide links to everything that you see down there in the description, but I would recommend that you first start by going to the mods KSP forum. And the reason why I would recommend that you start by going to the forum is because there you can read about the mod, you can see if other people are happen to have problems with the mod, you can get help with installing the mod or using the mod. It's a great place for you to go to get your questions answered quickly. Once we're there, what we're going to do is we're going to click on one of the download links, and I'm going to download using CurseForge. Many mods have different places for you to download things from, and so you just got to get used to different mods having different locations. And one thing you definitely do want to check before you go ahead and download is check out what the game version is. I am currently playing with version 1.11.2. This one says it's good for game version 1.11. The minor ones, minor updates, almost always never affect mods, but you do want to pay attention to the version updates. I'm on version 11. This version of Kerbal Engineer is designed for version 11. That means that this has a very good chance of working very well for me. It doesn't necessarily mean, though, that if the mod is not 100% up to date, that doesn't necessarily mean that it won't work. Many older mods still continue to work, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. What you need to do is test it out, see if it works for yourself, or read through the forums and see if other people are having issues with it working with the most recent version of Kerbal Space Program. As this one, though, is completely up to date, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit the download button. And you can see here it's downloading down here on the right, and it downloads in the version of a zip file. Let's take a good look at that zip file. So I got down here the my Kerbal Engineer zip file. We're gonna open that up. You can see all kinds of information. There's README text. Never a bad idea to take a look at the README text. But what I want is to take a look here at this folder called Kerbal Engineer. And you can see here that this is all the stuff that's involved with Kerbal Engineer. Now, what you need to do is get this folder into the game data folder of your KSP install. So let's go back to where I have my KSP video program installed here, and we're going to double click on that to open up all the folders that are inside there, and inside there you'll find a folder called game data, which is information that the game installs while the game is being booted up. So what I want to do right now, it's just stock stuff from Squad. What I want to do is add Kerbal Engineer to that mix, and it's very, very easy. I simply grab that Kerbal Engineer folder and I copy it into my game data folder, and that is all there is to it. Now, many mods will structure the zip file so that it also has a game data folder in it. They're trying to make it easier. It's not 100% consistent between different modders. So do make sure that you're grabbing the actual mod folder, not a game data folder that actually is already in the zip file, or else you'll have game data, then the mod, and that won't work for you. If you all of a sudden see a game data folder inside your game data folder, you did it wrong. Go back to it. I now have Kerbal Engineer installed in this particular game. Why don't I go about running it and see how it is? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my Kerbal Space Program folder, and to run Kerbal Space Program from here, I simply have to double click on KSP x64 execute. That's it. That's the execution file for Kerbal Space Program. That will run it, and that will run it just this one time. But going through all of these file management windows in order to run my program is a bit of a pain. There are a variety of ways that you have, depending upon your operating system, of creating shortcuts to this executable. All I do is right click on it, and whoops, I think I dragged and right click. Let's try that again. Right click on it, and one of the options here is to create a shortcut, and then I can place this shortcut anywhere that I like. I can put that onto my desktop. What I like to do is actually drag that down to my taskbar down here at the bottom, and you can see I already have a few versions of Kerbal Space Program already down here, and simply add that to the mix so that from now on I just click on the taskbar. If you're doing this through Steam, you can link through your Steam library as well. So lots of different options. I'll leave it for you to explore. Let's just go over here and we'll start Kerbal Space Program and take a look at our Kerbal Engineer. Yeah, I know. Okay, let's go into the tracking station. And there we go. We can see we got our Kerbal Engineer window. I'm not going to go through in a lesson on how to work Kerbal Engineer. I can see the button down here is working just fine. But I can see now that I do have it installed. All right, let's keep going and look at another way to install mods and install something else. An absolutely excellent tool that's out there for installing mods that I would highly recommend is the king of mods, CKAN, the Comprehensive Kerbal Archive Network. CKAN will allow you to install mods It will keep them up to date for you. It will make sure that all of those mods have the necessary dependencies that they need to have. That is, other mods that they need to work with in order to work properly. And they will keep those mods up to date for you. It is excellent. It makes things go a lot quicker for you. And all it requires is you to do a very simple install yourself. So let's go through how do we install and then how we use CKAN, and then we'll use CKAN to install a couple of more mods into our install. Now, right here, this is the forum page. I would always start with the forum page so that you can read, see what other information is there, read what other users have to say about the mod, maybe problems that they've had or solutions that they have come up with. The wiki itself, if we scroll our way down, we got videos on how to use the mod that you can check yourself, but they have their own wiki that you can take a look at, and they also have their own user guide that give you very detailed instructions on how to install CKAN onto your computer, regardless of the system that you are using. CKAN is very simple to install. It simply installs a single executable file that you can put anywhere. It'll run from any location on your computer, but for me, I installed CKAN in my KSP folder that I created here. So there is my CKAN.exe file. That is the file that you download when you download the CKAN mod itself. And let's double click on that and see what we get. Okay, so I get this first menu. And if you're running CKAN for the first time, this menu will be blank, and it is to help you manage game instances. So if you have various installs going all at the same time with different mods installed on them, this can help you keep all of that straight. Again, this is helping you out. So the KSP installs that I already have going, you can see are listed here. But what we're going to need to do is add a new game instance. So we're going to click on this and we're going to add an instance to CKAN. Okay, and I'm in my you start in the same folder wherever CKAN happens to be. And here's the folder for the one that we're working on, this Kerbal Space Program video. I'm going to double click on that, and what I need to do is find this file, buildid64.txt. Might be slightly different. Sometimes the 64 might not be there or something like that, but it's always buildid.txt. That's the file you need to select to add this instance to CKAN. So we're going to click on that, and we're just going to say open, and now this instance has been added to my list of other instances. So if I want to modify one of these, I simply click on it and hit select, but obviously I want to work on this one today. So I'm going to hit our new install and we're going to say select. And you get this window here going, do you want CKAN to automatically check for updates at startup? I always say yes. I'll leave that for you. And right now it is building up all the mods that it has available for you. Would you like CKAN to refresh the mod list every time it's uploaded? And I like to click yes to that, so that every time CKAN is uploaded, it will have all the mods that are available for you to download. And you can see that there is a huge list of mods here, and sometimes this might feel quite intimidating to people. Don't worry about it. It actually is much easier to use. Right now, notice that there's a filter up here at the top, and it's showing all the mods that are compatible with my current version of Kerbal Space Program, and you can see there are 425 mods available. I can change the filter to other things, including all the mods that it has on its registry. Notice that there's over 2,500 of them. I wouldn't select that one. We'll keep it on compatible for now. And if you wanted to, for instance, I could look up Kerbal Engineer, which I had just installed, Kerbal Engineer. And I'll type Kerbal, maybe type in Engineer. There's too many ones that start with Kerbal. And there's Kerbal Engineer Redux. And if I wanted to install that, all I simply do is do that and say apply the changes. Now it's going to get a little messed up because I'd already installed Kerbal Engineer Redux. CKAN doesn't like it if you manually install mods and then use CKAN on top of it because it can't keep track of the changes. So I'm not going to install Kerbal Engineer Redux. Instead, I'm going to install a completely different mod. I'm going to install the mod restock. So I'm going to type restock in here. And I'm looking here at the restock mod, and over here it gives you a very brief description of what the restock mod does. It's a community-built replacement for KSP part modules and textures, no effect on the gameplay. So it actually changes the textures, I think makes them look really much better, changes a lot of the engine plumes, things like that, makes the game a little bit prettier than what it already is. If I want to install restock, I simply have to click on it, and restock suddenly is something that I can install. Okay, I'm also going to install at the same time, just for fun, this other mod called Restock Plus. Over here, again, very brief description, a carefully curated set of new parts that will be fill in gaping holes in the stock lineup. So it adds in some extra new parts. I kind of like that. In fact, I actually very much recommend this particular mod, and you can click on that one and then it will install that as well. By the way, all of these mods have forum pages that if you want to find out more and read about them or ask questions, by all means feel free to go, and notice that CKAN will link you to those places as well. We're not going to do that right now. Instead, all we're going to do is apply changes. It gives you a list of the things that it's ready to do before you're ready to go. It's going to install Restock and Restock Plus version 1.3.1. It's also going to install a mod called Module Manager, which is all about managing mods. It's a dependency for these particular ones. Again, I didn't select that. It's doing, CKAN's doing that for me. It's going, dude, you need Module Manager. And I'm going, okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to hit apply, and off it goes. It knows where to go. It knows where to find these things, and it knows to install them. And there it is. It is done. We have now installed Restock and Restock Plus. If I go over to my installed mods, notice that there is on the list of my installed mods here. If I click this off, there we go. We also have Module Manager installed as well. Okay, let's go back to compatible. We're going to install one more mod. Now notice that all the mods here are all up to date for our current version of Kerbal Space Program. What if I wanted to install something that's not up to date? I'm going to install a mod called Kerbal Alarm Clock, a very common mod, and all of a sudden I noticed that, oh my gosh, Kerbal Alarm Clock isn't on the list because the list has a filter. Only the compatible ones are being shown. So let's go to all, and there is Kerbal Alarm Clock right there. And notice that its max gain version is 1.9.9. Again, if you want to find out more about Kerbal Alarm Clock, go to the home page. Again, I'll put links to all of this stuff down there in the description. Read about Kerbal Alarm Clock. But notice that I do not have a little box here to allow me to check off and install Kerbal Alarm Clock, because CKAN is going, wait a second, this mod's not up to date. And its default behavior is the cautious behavior of not allowing you to install mods that are not up to date. Some mods that are not up to date flat out won't work with current versions of KSP. But many mods, and Kerbal Alarm Clock is amongst them, still do work even though they're not 100% up to date. So I would like to install Kerbal Alarm Clock. I don't want to do it manually. I want to do it through CKAN. How can I go about doing that? Well, if I go up here to the settings, I have here a item here called compatible game versions. I'm going to click on that. And over here, it allows you to click all the versions of KSP that you want CKAN to consider compatible. The most recent version, as of the recording of this video, it's up here as well, as version 1.11.2. Yada yada yada. So I'm going to click 1.11, but I know with Kerbal Alarm Clock, it's compatible with version 1.9, so I'm going to click that as being considered to be compatible. Note that the further you go down this list, the older those versions of KSP are, and the more problems you're likely to encounter trying to install those mods. So you do have to do this, forewarned that this might not work. Again, read the forums, find out if other people are having problems with the current version of KSP, and as I said at the very beginning of all this, back up your version of KSP. So if it doesn't work, it's not a big deal. So I'm going to select 1.11 and 1.9. I'm going to hit accept. And now Kerbal Alarm Clock is considered compatible. I now have the option of selecting Kerbal Alarm Clock and going through and installing that. So we're going to hit apply. I'm going to apply that. It is also recommending Trigger AU flags. These are extra flags that come with Kerbal Alarm Clock. I'm not going to install that. You don't have to install recommendations, so you can unselect that. So if it comes up with recommendations or suggestions, you can decide whether you're going to install that or whether you're not going to install that. I'm going to hit continue, and off it goes, and now Kerbal Alarm Clock has now been installed successfully into my version of KSP. Oh, there we go. And there are all the ones I've installed so far. If you are installing an entire buttload of mods, I would recommend, again, this is another recommendation, because modding with every mod, you increase the chance even a little bit of something going wrong and breaking your game. So what I would recommend if you're installing a lot of mods is do them in batches. Install a handful of mods, see how that works, then install another handful of mods, see if that is working, and work your way up. You can easily get dozens and dozens of mods installed as you go on, but check how they're working as you go. And again, back up your games. I can't emphasize that one enough, so that if you get really into modding, you're going to run into a situation where you end up breaking your game. And it turns out if you backed up, that isn't a big deal, and it makes you a lot more braver for trying different mods, knowing that nothing totally disastrous is going to happen. And before wrapping this up, I do want to welcome aboard my two newest patrons, Alejandro de la Fuente and Tim Drake. It is the support of patrons like these that ensure that these videos continue to come out on a regular basis. So let's sum up what we've looked at in this video. Started off by talking about how to install mods manually. You might be wondering with CKAN, why bother with knowing how to install things manually? But not every single mod is on CKAN, so it's good to know how to do things manually in case you can't do it in any other way. That said, we did take a look at CKAN and how CKAN can be used to help not only install your mods, but manage those mods, ensuring that they stay up to date and have the dependencies that they require. And we also spent a little bit of time taking a look at how you can still use CKAN to install mods that are technically not compatible, but may work anyway. Emphasis on the word may. Make sure to read up, back up, and test those mods before diving deep into some save that you have. And with that, I'm going to be drawing this video to a close. I thank you for watching and hope to see you again for the next one.